Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. Of course, we'll be talking about everything Tottenham Hotspur, reviewing the week, and it has been a good one result-wise. Beating Coventry in the Carabao Cup, Spurs are through to the fourth round, and beating Brentford in the Premier League at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Saturday. It was a good atmosphere on Saturday and everyone was smiling after the game, which is great to see. We will also be taking a lot of viewers and listeners' questions and comments. So if you have any, please do post them in the comments section on YouTube. We're live on YouTube, live on X, and also live on Facebook. So please do get involved and let us know how you are feeling right now as a Tottenham Hotspur fan. Now, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everybody who nominated the channel, because we've again been shortlisted for 2 awards this time around in 2024. The award ceremony will actually take place at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, of all places, on the 21st of November. We have been nominated and shortlisted for 2 awards: Best in Social and Best Club Content Creator. That is now 10 nominations, or we've been shortlisted 10 times in 5 years, which is absolutely unbelievable. And I said it in a short video earlier today that doing YouTube for 7 years, it is unbelievable that this channel goes from strength to strength, and I cannot thank all of you enough. So thank you so much. Also, I would like to say that we are currently trying to raise as much money as possible for the Engine Room, a community centre near Tottenham, by, you can bid for this signed shirt. I do actually have the shirt here. It's signed by the whole squad from Ange Postecoglou's first season in charge. The current bid and the highest bid at the moment is £320, and that is Chris Manning. So if we can get that up, then please place a bid during this live stream. I've got 3 very special guests, as per normal, with me, back with us. It seems like you're here more than me, Craig. Craig Dearman, how are you?
All right, yeah. Sorry, I've got the giggles at the moment. I really have. It's pathetic while I've got the giggles. So, but I'm at least in a good mood, eh? Yeah. Always good to be on. Especially after a win as well. Less stress in it. So, yeah, looking forward to this one.
Well, we never see you laughing, Craig. We only very rarely see you smiling. So it's great to see a big smile and a laughter on your face. Yeah. Also back with us is Gareth McGuinness. Gareth, how are you?
All good, Chris. All good, Chris. Getting used to this Monday night football, of course. Really enjoyable. Best night of the week for me, a Monday as well. So it's kind of falls perfectly. And I think it's the first one I've done this season where we're coming on the back of a win. So really positive. And if it takes giggles to get Craig laughing after a win against Brentford, I'm looking forward to next Monday. If we beat Man United, he might fall off his chair. But we'll see.
Back with us also, and it's been far too long. You may remember Jason from the South Korea days of eating a lot. Jason Tranter is back. Jace, how are you?
Very good, Chris. Thanks for the intro. Yeah, no, it's nice to be back. I've sustained that since I've been back, so yeah, it's always good to have a bite to eat, isn't it? Absolutely.
Yeah, we had a good time in South Korea, didn't we?
We did.
Jace, let's start the show with you. How are you feeling right now as a Spurs fan? I know you were there at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Saturday. How are you feeling overall? Because the mood online was very different to the mood inside the stadium.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough before the game to go to an official sports club bash, pre-match bash with Sandro and Graham Roberts on the Q&A, and I have to say the crowd in there was a lot of finger pointing. There was a lot of, when it was opened up to Q&A, for the questions from the audience, the mood was quite dark, to be honest with you. And Graham did quite well to keep people in check, because there was the trust the process and the Ange way, and none of us had seen that, to be fair. For long parts of this season, we've been unlucky. Certainly against Newcastle, we could have done a little bit better with the result, and certainly Leicester. But it was starting to come through a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of where's Craig going?
He's gone away.
I've gone sideways. Sorry,
He's went sideways.
Yeah,
you're going to give us the giggles.
I've just got into something else while you're talking, Jay. So ignore me.
All right, no problem. So the anxiety was coming through, and Graham, bless him, he did his best to keep everybody in check, but they were remonstrating. They were like, what's going on with our football club? Again, the mood was dark. And then we got in there, we got to see the game, and the first 23 seconds, bang, Brentford score. And you'd like to think, okay, trust the process. That's gone out of the window almost immediately. You know, you can understand why people are in a dark mood. But the next 10, 15 minutes after that, it was electric. You know, we were attack, cross, you know, and Solanke, and we'll talk about that later, managed to get his goal. And the mood changed. You could feel the mood swing. We had momentum. We had happiness back in our faces. And we could see a little bit of Ange ball creeping back in again. Now, I've always been quite positive and quite behind Ange. And, you know, I've spent many years trusting the process, which has ebbed and flowed up and down. And we've all experienced the painful rebuild and all the rest of it. Yeah. But when it all clicks, it's quite beautiful. And it was a wonderful feeling at the end of that game, especially with the music coming back on as it should, and the place was bouncing, and that's what we want to see.
Jace, talk me through the difference, though, because online it seems to be very negative, but we don't get that negative vibe in the stadium. It is quite different, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable on the back of commentary. For 87 minutes, we struggled. It's probably one of the worst performances we've seen for many a year. So that anxiety tends to go through, and it's going to be exploded on social media like it does. But the people that travel there week in, week out, they support the team, and you could see that within the stadium. You have to cancel out some of the noise online sometimes, and it's great. The people around me were all, you know, despite that 23rd second goal, they remained positive and they remained back in the team, and that's the most critical bit for me. And I think a lot of the time you have to blank out all the noise that goes on. And like I say, I know you'll probably get on a T-shirt, trust the process. But again, that's what we did. And we saw the results of that played out on the field. So it was absolutely fantastic to see. And hopefully, I said at the time before commentary, he's probably got 5 critical games where it will decide his future. And 2 of those games we've won. We played badly in the first game, but we've got through to the next round. We played a blinder on Saturday. So let's take that into Man United and Brighton and the remaining games, and then that'll be great.
Craig, let's come to you. Where Jason said there, got 5 games, critical games, to decide his future. Should it be like that? Because if you're trusting the process, and we're going through yet another manager, and we've spoken so often on this podcast, you know, year after year about managerial changes, surely we should be sticking with Ange no matter what happens in the next couple of months, because, you know, this is a long-term project.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think me and Jason are very similar vintage. I won't put you in that bracket, Chris, because I've done that before and you didn't like it because you're considerably younger than me. And I'm not even going to talk about Gareth because he's sickeningly young. But we will remember, and I'm sure you do, Chris, in the 80s, it used to be so different, and even the 90s. No, yeah.
I remember the 90s very well, yeah.
You remember the 90s, yeah. Well, it was... Managers just seem to be given time. I think social media and the way people get their news nowadays and can just get it all out there, it's just in your face all the time, and nobody's given a second. We've got a win now culture. We've got a culture where everyone wants everything instantly. You know, you can order off Amazon. There are other shops available, but you can order off Amazon and you can get stuff there the same day. And it's just getting quicker and quicker, and everybody just wants instant success. And look, I'll throw myself in with that. You know, after you've been trophy starved for as many years as we have been, you don't want to have to wait for another rebuild. You don't want to have to wait for years to get a team that's capable of winning a trophy. But we've tried the win now managers, and they didn't win anything. You could say we didn't give them long enough, but they kind of came to a natural conclusion anyway. The Contes and the Mourinhos and the other manager we don't even talk about. So, you know, we've now got a project manager. What is the point of getting rid of a project manager at the start of a project? And that's what it still is. We're still at the start of this project. We're 4 games into the season, 5 games, count the cup. So it's still early days for me. We've got to trust this manager. We saw Saturday what we could do When it works, it wasn't a perfect performance, but it was a lot better. And look, we've just got to stick with him. We've got to stick with him. It was good to see the fan base get behind the team when we went behind, actually, Saturday. That was great to see. And it was great to see Brennan Johnson getting a bit of support as well from the fans. That must have boosted his confidence. This is what I said last week. How is abusing somebody online going to help a young kid like that? You know, they got to want to feel like the fans are behind them. And I was so glad to see he got that. And I'm so glad he got another goal as well. 2 goals in a week. It's just fantastic to see.
Craig, I know you love your stats, so I'm going to give you some here. Tottenham rankings, Premier League this season. League position, of course, we're 10th. Now, average possession, 63.2%. We rank first in the Premier League. Crosses, 126. We rank first in the Premier League. Passes into the penalty area, 71. We rank first in the Premier League. Shots on target, 33. We again rank first in the Premier League. And touches in the final third, 1,267. And you've guessed it, we rank first in the Premier League. Impressive stats, eh?
It is incredible. I saw that earlier. And it is just... I mean, you can almost ignore the league position at the moment. It's an early table, and obviously we know how we've done so far, but that is incredible. And if we can just turn those chances into goals like we did on Saturday, then we've got a chance. We've got a chance. And you can see now players are starting to do things naturally without being told. It's just that final third. We haven't been as clinical as we should be. We should have scored more Saturday. But, you know, with stats like that, surely the goals are going to come, honestly. I was a bit concerned the other week when that front three didn't seem to be clicking. And all we can do is just hope and trust, as Jason said, trust the process that they're going to click and get the goals. I know Gareth spoke about, you know, the tactical side of it before last week. And, you know, we're nearly there. We are nearly there. And when it works, it's beautiful. And we played some scintillating football on Saturday. So, look, another big game Thursday. I don't think it's Europa League. We've got 8 games in this competition. It wouldn't be a disaster if we dropped points Thursday, but we should be looking to go out and win this game on Thursday. But Manchester United Sunday, huge game. So, yeah, we get a couple of decent results there, then I think we're well on our way. Winning breeds confidence. That's what it's all about.
Qarabag, by the way, have played 6 games against English opposition in European competition, and they've lost all 6 of them. Just saying.
Chris, very quickly, Qarabag, weren't they taken over by an oligarch at one point, and they had Samueto playing for him? Was that Qarabag? It was many years ago.
Yeah, and I think it might have been Ange. Ange, was it?
No, I'm sure it was Qarabag. Sure it was. Yeah, sure it was. He was getting something like 330 grand a week, I seem to remember, and it was a while ago. I mean, Eto's been retired a while now, hasn't he? But,
we'll be doing the preview show for that on Wednesday, so we'll go through that one then, Craig. Gareth, let's talk a little bit about Ange, because do you think the criticism of Ange is unfair from the fan base? Because these last few weeks, he has been heavily criticised, him as a manager. But when you read those stats, it goes to show that things are working. But as we've said in previous podcasts, we have been unlucky in a lot of games this season. You know, it could be said that the first 3-4 games we could have been sitting there with 9-12 points respectively. You know, just didn't finish chances in that final third. So do you think that the criticism with Ange has been unfair?
Really unfair, because I think Craig and JJ have spoke very well there. Like, we've all been very consistent with Ange, even when we were getting them results there, we were kind of all on the same sort of bandwagon of it needs time. And your eyes don't lie to you. I mean, it wasn't like we were being outplayed in those games or couldn't create chances or up, you know, on the back foot. A lot of it was down to self-inflicted mistakes attack in both boxes. Because I think between the boxes we've been excellent. We've dominated games of football. The only poor performance this season has been the Coventry game. And whilst I didn't agree with Ange's team selection, He rolled the dice and he got away with it. But a lot of teams make changes. It's not just Spurs that do it. A lot of teams, you can talk about the top teams, but even teams that are mid-table tend to make changes because they focus on the league because that's where the financial rewards are. Whether you agree with that or not, that's your opinion. I didn't agree with the team selection, but you throw it all together and 8 changes, it's going to be disjointed. You're never going to get 8 players that are rusty, haven't played much football this early part of the season, coming in and sort of setting the world on fire. I know Coventry made a lot of changes too, but we were very fortunate in that game. And sometimes luck evens out. We deserved to beat Newcastle, in my opinion. We didn't. We deserved to beat Leicester. We didn't. And Coventry probably deserved to beat us. And sometimes them things even themselves out over a season. And I'm just hoping that's the one, sometimes in a cup competition, you get that one sort of hurdle. You scare and you get through it, and it can lead to a good cup run sometimes. We've seen that before. Although we never won them recently, we have got through those early rounds with a scare sometimes and got on to get quite far. So I thought the mentality was excellent on Wednesday night. The fact that they kept going. It would have been easy to throw the towel in. 1-0 down, 2 minutes to go. But they kept playing their football, and I think that's the main difference to this manager to the past few. You couldn't really see an identity under Conte, under Mourinho. It was very huff and puff. Individuals pulled us through at times. Whereas if you look at the 2 goals against Coventry, they were actually really, really good team goals. And there is that consistency that Ange is talking about with the football, the style of play, the pressing. I thought our pressing on Saturday was excellent against Brentford. We never give them a minute to breathe. And again, the mentality from conceding in the first sort of 30 seconds would have been easy again for everybody involved, the club, the players, the fans. They'd be really negative. But I think Ange summed it up well. It was as if that goal didn't go in and we just continued at 0-0. And I thought that first half was very similar to Leicester, very similar to how we played at Newcastle, where we completely smothered the opposition. I think Brentford, to be fair, come back and did, and you kind of always felt at 2-1 there was going to be another goal, and Spurs got it, and it was another really well worked team goal. So, Chris, I think there's been more positives than negatives. I think the criticism is down to results only, and possibly down to maybe mistakes from players, because I don't know what you can criticize the manager with. If you're getting into those areas, that's his work. The players aren't doing that by magic, because if it was that easy, they'd have done it under the previous manager. So that is all hard work and training on the pitch. You don't be that good in possession, creating that many opportunities without a lot of hard work. Yes, you can look at the set pieces and things like that need improved, but in regardless to how we're playing as a team and creating that many chances, that is down to the manager. So the people that are kind of criticising Ange at least have the sort of balance. They say, well, do you know what? I can't argue with certain aspects of it, because it just seems that so many people are criticising when they're not really doing their homework. I mean, we can sit here and we can be critical of times of players missing opportunities, but Ange has got what he's got. If there's any criticism of quality in that attacking area, I think you have to point the player, somebody above Ange that's you can only spend so much money on certain players. I think he rolled the dice with Solanke. That was his big summer signing. If he was going to go out and sign a player of 60, 70 million, I think he picked Solanke over an Eze or over Neto, and the rest of it he kind of had to manage and work with his budget. And that isn't really down to Ange at all. Whilst I sat here and was pretty critical last week of, I think the board should have went and got a Neto or an Eze. That is down to the board, not Ange. So I think he's doing what he can with what he has. And I think if we can somehow have a really decent season this year, possibly win a trophy, or even just make sure we're in the Champions League next year, there'll be extra funds there to go and really attack the market. Because I did say these, and I've been pretty consistent with this, that I do think we're a year behind where Ange wants us to be. He'll say things in the media to try and drive up the mentality, and of course that's opened up the criticism from fans, from pundits. I was listening to TalkSport today, and they were saying that as Ange putting unnecessary pressure on himself, he possibly isn't. To be fair to him, he doesn't have to do that. So at least he's prepared. Whereas Conte and Jose were always kind of blaming the board and blaming ours. He's kind of saying, look, it's all me. And I kind of like that. And he said as well that even if he's not here for the long term, he's planning to be here for the long term. He wants to set us up. So I think, everything he says is kind of magic to my ear, magic to my ears. So yes, he's not perfect, but I think he's the perfect manager for what we have at the moment. And it really, everyone's entitled to support how they want to support. But what more do you want at the minute? I think that the football is fantastic. If we can just brush up in both boxes, we can be a really, really top team this year.
He's very used to it. He's gone through it all before. Every single club he's been at. I tell you what, I certainly feel a lot more positive about things, having had that interview with Vince Rugari. So do check out that book, Ange Ball. Fantastic read. Jace, let's come to you. Let's talk a little bit about that Coventry game, because I must say, since Ange Postecoglou's been appointed, if I was to criticise Ange, it would probably be twice. 9 changes in the League Cup last season against Fulham, 8 changes in the League Cup against Coventry. Of course, it has been a great week result-wise, but that performance, as you rightly said and referenced earlier, was a really poor performance. Now, we expect a number of players to take their opportunities when they're given them, especially when some of them don't get a lot of game time. Were you surprised by that team selection, particularly what happened last year? And what would you have done differently if you were the manager? Because I get that a lot of these guys need game time. They need to play. But 8 changes, is that a bit too many?
Yeah, it can be. I mean, there's a couple of ways you can look at it. I mean, I went to Fulham last year for that cup game, and we went out on penalties, didn't we? We went out right at the end. It's 1-1, I think. So, yeah, huge disappointment. It was the first one where we thought we're really going to go for it this year. So it was massive disappointment in the crowd for that one. So when it came to this Coventry City game, we kind of knew what was coming. But he admitted just before that game that he needed to give people game time. People like Bergvall and Archie Gray played, didn't he? And a few others. Forster, he needed to give those guys. And there's not many other opportunities to provide that. But on the other side of it, we'd rather play the strongest team, get the job done, and then bring those guys on for the last 20 minutes just to see out the game and get a bit more time in the legs. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, really. We were so lucky against Coventry, and some of the play that we saw in the last 3 or 4 minutes of that game was kind of replicated on Saturday. But I think he'll do similar for the upcoming games. So it'd be interesting to see what take he does on that one, because we've got a multitude of games in the Europa. It's not all over in the first strike. But again, you want to get it done early doors. You don't want to be going into the latter games, certainly not going to Germany or Turkey and having to get the result. So we'd rather, as fans, have it done and dusted, and then bring these players out, the second string, so to speak. But are they far off it? It's difficult to say. Certainly the goalkeeper was so rusty against Coventry, and a few of the other players who just did not click. It was almost calamity time. Certainly in defence. It's
fair to say that some of these players aren't ready, Jace, because I think that some people expect us to have like a ready-made squad to compete for trophies this season. I know Ange has come out and said, I always win in my second season, but we've all got to be realistic that we are only 14 months into a rebuild, which is going to take a bit of time. Yeah, I mean, when we looked at the first game, we looked at the bench. I thought we looked quite strong, and even going into Newcastle, I thought our second string looked really good. But when you bring the entire second string in, without that extra little bit of level, that's where the problems lie. And I don't think we can afford to do that in the next League Cup game. I think we need to go strong, and then bring these players in for the last 20 minutes if that's what's required. But if we are going to be serious about challenging for a trophy, and let's face it, I think we're probably fighting on 3 fronts rather than 4, because I don't think the Premier League is still way beyond us. But we've certainly got a chance in the Europa. We've certainly got a chance in the League Cup. And, of course, we'd all love an FA Cup, wouldn't we? So let's see how it pans out. But these games are coming thick and fast now. We're going to get more injuries. We're going to get more, the guys are going to be leggy. I mean, Sonny looked particularly leggy towards the end of the match, and he was stretching off. And I thought he'd done his hamstring at one point because of the way he was holding his leg. So these guys have to be given an opportunity, but we need to have a balance of experience with the youth. It can't all be the second string that's going out and trying to make it happen, because it ain't going to happen. Jake, just on Ange, how many times have you and I been in the pub having a pint saying that we're going to win a trophy under Pochettino, then Jose, then Conte? Is now going to be the time under Ange? Oh, my goodness. Craig alluded to it earlier. We came through a bit of a purple patch in the early 80s.
and a little bit into the 90s, and then it kind of dried up, didn't it? So, days out of Wembley, a cup final, it's what we all dream about, and it has to come at some point, surely. Everything goes in cycles, and you'd like to think it's our time. But again, if he plays under string side, at second string side, then we've got no chance. We're just going to be aiming for top 4 again. And although Champions League football is fantastic and we get some great away trips and all the rest of it, it's not what we want. We want silverware, and it's got to come at some point, surely.
I've got to say, I've missed these European trips. Cannot wait until next week. Craig, let's come to you. The fans forum took place on Monday evening. Daniel Levy was asked, what are your top 3 achievements as Tottenham Hotspur chairman so far? He said, opening up the stadium, getting to the Champions League final, and honoured and blessed to have many amazing players at the club. And he was also asked about how he deals with the criticism. And he said, I have a very thick skin and I just have to ignore it. It makes me want to be more successful. Do you think that Ange Postecoglou is going to be successful at Tottenham?
I do. Eventually, I do. Yeah. And that is just it's just a feeling. I've got a feeling, like leading on from what Gareth said, that this is the manager to do it. I actually said that last season. But the nature of football goes back to it. Everybody wants everything now. If things aren't improving at the end of this season, obviously questions are going to be asked. But look, like you, there's a few decisions I think Ange I didn't like at all, and I think he got wrong. The Fulham game, like you said, the cup game last week, and for me, and this may prove to be true or not, he's leaving Jed Spence out of the Europa squad. I just don't get that one. I think we could have dropped Forster from that squad and gone with Austin and give him some game time. I think Austin is a better goalkeeper than Forster now, from what I've seen. But leaving Jed Spence out, that was just a weird decision. I don't get it. We all saw how well he did the other night and how he changed the game when he came on at Coventry. It's just a weird one for me. Going back to your question, yes, I do think Ange is the man to bring trophies finally to this club, because they are long overdue. And what Daniel Levy said at the forum, he's seeing all these great players come through, yeah, but most of them haven't won anything. So he's going to want to win something. Of course he is. And hopefully he's got the right man to do the job.
Gareth, when Daniel Levy speaks there about one of the greatest achievements, getting to the Champions League final, of course, we were all on such a high. And I remember that day extremely well, on such a high. Getting to a Champions League final, simply incredible as a Spurs fan. And then, of course, that penalty incident, it wasn't a great game. We end up losing. How would you describe that period since that Champions League final? Because we've gone round in circles in a lot of ways. We've gone through multiple different managers. But as Jason and Craig have alluded to there about Ange, we can see improvements, and it is still only early on in this rebuild.
I think after that Champions League final, Levy was already thinking possibly about changing the manager, because I think he had thought that Pochettino had got us so far that he had multiple opportunities to get us over the line, and he failed in every one of them. Whether that's his fault, players' fault, Levy's fault for not backing him, as you famously always say, Chris, all those days we had a signing that season. Are you telling me there wasn't a single player out there that couldn't improve Spurs? Of course there was. How
do you not know it's 518 days? How many times did I say that, Gareth? Come on.
I knew it was 500 and something there, but I couldn't remember exactly. During that period, that's when he needed to back him. And for whatever reason, he didn't, because yes, we had a very good starting 11, but we didn't have the players on the bench, bar maybe 1-2 max to change it. We never really had a strong 16. But for whatever reason, I'm sure Levy has these reasons as well. He'll say that stadium was holding them back financially as well. But that was the time they rolled the dice, and he didn't. He waited, and then strangely backed him that summer. The 4 players that he seemed to want. And it's fair to say that the players that he wanted that summer, the recruitment team that was behind Pochettino at the time, went and signed 4 players that were terrible for us. You think about Ndombele, the hassle we had with him. The Celso never really worked, although I do think there was a wee bit of a player there. Just don't think he suited the league, and a lot of injuries. Sesjong and Jack Clark were disasters for us. So it went all wrong, and I think the start of the season, Levy had already in the back of his head that this possibly needed a change, and the fact that Mourinho became available, I think he always in the back of his head wanted that Mourinho manager. He thought maybe sacrificing some of the good football they maybe won a different way was possible, but realistically, it was Mourinho was a manager past his best, and it was the Spurs team that was past its best, so it was never going to work. And then from there, it was just a downward spiral of more of the same. The whole process for the manager, when they ended up with Nuno, was a disaster. Then bringing in Conte, there was a brief spell where it looked okay, but I was never really convinced. As I spoke about numerous times, I thought Kane and Son were huge in that period. And that ran out of steam eventually, because I don't think the players ever enjoyed that style of football. And I think that's the biggest difference between then and now is I seen a team on Saturday. Yes, confidence is probably low a wee bit after the amount of chances that's being missed, but I'm looking at players that are enjoying playing for the club. There's a real unity there. And I think, if you're a footballer and you've got a manager that's telling it's all his responsibility, and he's willing to take the blame if there's defeats, it takes the pressure off of players. And that was never the case under Conte, under Mourinho. It was always somebody else's fault if it was going wrong. And that kind of environment just creates toxic atmospheres. And look, whilst they were successful at our clubs, that's why they had such a short lifespan at clubs that, they never really went beyond 3 years. And as they've got under their later careers, those managers it's got even less in the modern era. It's 18 months at max, 2 years. So football's changed massively, and I think we finally got a manager that embraces the modern culture. But just to clarify what I was saying there, Chris, I think Levy has to take a huge share of mismanaging the club from top to bottom since 2018. That summer, leading into the season, we got the Champions League final. I think that Champions League final run papered over a lot of the cracks. If you look at our form post the new year, it was pretty poor in the league. And we were fortunate to get into the top 4 that year. I think Arsenal were in pole position and they completely collapsed. And we managed to get in there. But I think there was that kind of mismanaging from them. And I think eventually going for Ange, it needed a change. It needed somebody that was going to get the fans on side, play the football we wanted, and kind of, if we do want it, it's a bonus. But I almost think now that he's got the manager on there that's the fans are happy with. Majority of them up until the last few weeks have been behind Ange. So look, I would just urge a lot of the fans to give this a chance, because I'm seeing a lot more positives than negatives. And if it is a quality issue, then maybe that can be fixed with more transfer windows. But if the style of play is there, and the players are enjoying it and fighting for the manager, I'm seeing a team that's fighting for them, then I think that's really, really positive. And Chris, as them stats are impressive. I haven't seen a Spurs team have those kind of stats. And whilst we talk about the Pochettino era, this is a much more competitive league. It's a Man City team that's won 4 in a row. An Arsenal team that's never been as strong since the Invincibles. Liverpool are a team that's always been competing for the last 6 or 7 years. Villa are strong at the moment. Newcastle have had a takeover. Man United and Chelsea are still around. You've Brighton. There's a lot of really good teams in the Premier League. So for Spurs to be putting up those numbers, if they can put the points to those numbers, we're going to be a very, very happy fan base.
Jace, let's come to you. Let's talk a little bit about James Madison, because I felt that James Madison was absolutely superb at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium against Brentford on Saturday. He completed the most dribbles in the match, which was 7, the most fouled player, which was 4 times. He won the most duels in the game, which was 14. He had 3 shots, 87 touches in the game, 10 in the opposition box, 8 passes into the final third. He created 3 chances and created 1 big chance, and of course scored Tottenham's final goal of the game in the 85th minute. What did you make of James Madison's performance on Saturday? Because this is the midfielder we want to see on a consistent basis, isn't it? And if he carries on playing like that, he'll be in the England setup every single camp.
Yeah, since that fateful game against Chelsea, his form, he had the injury, then his form just dropped away. And he's not the only one. It seems like there's a couple of players that's starting to come back to some form now. Bentancur is critical to the central midfield. And with him and Madison starting to get some form now, it's starting to show. And that was his best game for a long, long period. And that goal was at the end was absolutely sublime. And he said at the end, he was just hoping that it just dipped under the bar, and he had that little cheeky smile. And you thought, yeah, this guy's back. He's loving his football. He was shaking people off that he hasn't done for a while either. People would try and tackle him, he'd turn, he'd move. His movement was absolutely fantastic. And he deserved all the plaudits that he got. I'd say he's probably him or Bentancur that was man of the match performance for me on Saturday. He probably gets that for me, because he was central to everything that we did the other day, and it's so refreshing to see. But as I said, there's a few players that are starting to click up that next level. I know you're going to talk, as we said, about Solanke in a bit, but you could see at the next level of fitness just kick in, and there's a huge difference. You can see it straight away in their ability to move and run and press. And that for me shone through at the weekend. And it was a lovely interview at the end, when he said about his mum and getting the yellow card and losing some points on fantasy football and all that kind of stuff. And he also came out and said very much what Gareth said, that all the players that are playing for Ange. They're behind what Ange is trying to do. And, he's one of the leaders in the dressing room. He gets a huge amount of respect, as a player, because he is an excellent player. And if he carries on, I can see him getting back into the England squad, no problem whatsoever. It was a shame he missed out on the summer, but he just wasn't ready for it. And now we can see the true Madders again. That first 10 games of last season when we were winning and we were top of the league, he was critical to that whole process. And now we're starting to see it again, and it's absolutely brilliant.
Craig, how important is it that Spurs have a player like James Madison? Because when he's on his day, he can be superb, can't he? And that finish at the end was fantastic. And it's interesting because Thomas Frank also said about Tottenham's pressing that Spurs are one of the most aggressive pressing sides in the Premier League. But when Madison is on fire, this really helps, doesn't it? This Tottenham team, it makes things so easy.
Yeah, it does. And because he had such a good game Saturday, it's no surprise that he was pulling all the strings. He was in the Eriksen role, essentially, is what I've said on here before about how good I think Eriksen was for Tottenham, how he knitted everything together. And that's what we want from James Madison. We want it every week, though. We don't just want it once in a blue moon. And obviously he's had his struggles over the last 6 months. Mainly, I'm still sure, due to injury and just trying to get back to fitness. But he did look sharp. He was still going at the 90th minute on Saturday. Phenomenal performance from Madison. If you actually watch the game back or watch the highlights, you can see the way he's gliding past players, in between players, taking players on, seeing balls that nobody else can see. He played a number of those passes. And, of course, that finish. Sensational. I did laugh about when he said about his mum having a go at him. He took his shirt off and lost the Premier League points or whatever it was. The what's it called? The fantasy league thing. Yeah. So that did tickle me. But yeah, he's. I think Madison's intrinsic to making this team tick. I think he's the only player that can do what he does best, if that makes sense. Kulusevski can do it. I don't think anybody can do it as well as Madison in this squad. So that's what we want every week. Of course, Madison can't be playing 2-3 games a week. He's going to have his rest like everyone else. So somebody's got to step up and do that job. But the fact, if we can keep Madison fit all season, then and he's playing like that, like he did Saturday, then we've got half a chance, definitely.
Gareth, let's come to you. Let's talk a little bit about Brennan Johnson, because he turned a horrible week into a fantastic week. Of course, getting the winner at Coventry in the Carabao Cup and then scoring a fantastic goal for Spurs on Saturday against Brentford. Now, in the Premier League this season so far, he has had 15 shots, scored 1 goal, XG 1.3. He's had 5 on target, 0 assists at the moment, and crossing accuracy only 20%. but his passing accuracy is 77.8%, touches in the opposition box 43. Gareth, does it surprise you that I've read out those stats, crossing accuracy 20%? Because we know that Brennan Johnson can do so much more. He's had the perfect week. It's been a very, very difficult time for him, deactivating his Instagram account, going through all of that, the trolling. Is this the time now when Brennan Johnson delivers week in, week out and shows that consistent level?
Look, I'm a fan of Brennan Johnson. When we signed him, I liked the signing. Do you think he has to do better? 100%. Do you think he can do better? And that's the most important thing, is 100%. I think he's got a lot of potential. I think the one thing that he lacks is that belief in himself at times. And only confidence can do that. I do think he is a big confidence player. I think that goal on Wednesday helped him for the goal on Saturday. I do think he lacks that wee bit of personality in his play. And sometimes players just don't have that, and it's very hard to coach that. That belief and that aura and that confidence that some players have. Like a Harry Kane could go 6 games without a goal. It doesn't happen often, but when he does, you still back him on the 7th game they scored. I think with Brennan, he needs to have that belief in him when things isn't going well. I think the crossing this season has been poor at times, but I also think his teammates haven't helped him. I think at times we haven't got enough players in the box. There hasn't been enough movement. He did have a couple of games there where he had a striker. The Everton game and the Newcastle game where Son was playing through the middle, or false 9 and Kulusevski or whoever it was there. So I do think he needs that Solanke, Richarlison type character to get the best out of him. Look, do you think he's going to be one of our best ever wingers? I don't think so. But I do think he's got a lot to offer, and I think he suits this system that Ange plays. I do think it helps. I think the boys were chatting about Saturday, and I think Kulusevski being on that midfield helps Brennan Johnson. I think we had a bit more balance with Madison on the left side of it and Kulusevski on the right, Bentancur in the middle, or Basuma. Whoever's going to play in there, probably be Basuma going forward, because I'm sure Bentancur will get some sort of ban in the next week or so. We'll probably hear about, but I think that is our best midfield with those two in front, because there is that balance with a left footer and a right footer. I think Sarr's been poor recently, even the back end of last season, but he's a young player, and that's going to happen. Players are going to have dips. But with Brennan, I do think he just needs to be played constantly. Ange does believe in him. He's not going to drop him. I don't think Odegaard's injury as well has made that fairly difficult to drop him, because I do think Kulusevski's best form now is on that midfield. So I'm not really sure who can play out there on the right now, because Werner can't really play out there. Son's not going to play on the right. So he's going to have games out there to really get a run. And I do think with Solanke in the team, you'll start to see more assists and more opportunity for him to get the ball, because I do think there is a coaching directive from Ange to get the ball on as quickly as possible. But I do think he needs to be a bit more patient at times as well, to make sure it's just not hopelessly in there. And I think when you're out of confidence and out of form, it's very easy just to get your head up and just put a ball in there and hope. And I think he was kind of doing that in the last couple of games. But that was his best performance on Saturday, I think, this season. I think he was fairly productive. He was unlucky. We won just before, where it just went past the post before his goal. That was kind of like a snooker player just gets his aim on. It was kind of like almost a postage stamp. And he got it right for the second goal. And it was a really good finish, probably his best goal in a Spurs shirt so far. Or you could point to the commentary goal as well, being the biggest. But that was a huge goal as well. And he took that really well. He took that like a player that was confident. So maybe just the last week, he's got his head down. He's maybe going to stay off social media as his kind of way of getting back. And I do kind of like the fact that when he did score, he kind of did sort of give it to the fans a wee bit, the wee shush and that was a wee bit of arrogance that he's been missing, I think. So I think the best winners, Chris, are arrogant, and I think he needs to develop that in this game. It's probably not in his personality, because he just seems like such a nice kid. But you think about the Ronaldos, the Gareth Bales, the Salahs, the Manes, the Thierry Henrys. Obviously, he's not at that level, but they were always that kind of arrogance and about them. And I just think Brennan needs to get that in this game if he's going to ever make it as a top Premier League winner. But look, I do think he'll get better. But whether or not he's the winger, if we're going to go on to do serious things, I'm not sure he's the answer. But for right now, he's definitely a player that's going to be important, and we have to get behind him. He's going to have games where he's inconsistent. But look, if he does what he does on Saturday more often, I'm sure the fans will get on his side, because he has shown in his sort of 14 months here, although he's not been prolific, that he has been a benefitter. You know, he scored 5 goals and 10 assists last season. So if he can put 15 to 20 goals every season on, I think that's a half decent return.
Chase, on the same subject, Brennan Johnson, what have you made of him in a Spurs shirt this season? Because, as I said, he's gone through a tough time, but it's been a great week for him. Ange Postecoglou has come out and said that he is one of the hardest working players, always knuckling down. But when I read those stats out, crossing accuracy 20%, it's probably quite an unfair stat, because on the podcast that we've recorded so far this season, he's put in a number of crosses. Like I'll go back to one of the instance in the Newcastle game right at the end. He put the perfect cross in, but no one was there to tap it in. So, and of course, he's had a lot of crosses blocked as well. Do you see improvements from last season to this season?
Yeah, I mean, he scored some cracking goals last season. He absolutely smashed one in the back of the net, latching onto one of the crosses. I remember it almost took the net off. So, he's pitched in with a few goals and fantastic goals. But I'll agree with Gareth. That was one of the better goals we saw on Saturday. It was right in front of me, actually, in the North Stand. So it's absolutely beautiful to see. And he zeroed in after the first one that missed the post by about half, just a few inches. So, he's doing his best out on the right, and he's going to get blocked. But he's putting cross after cross after cross in. And eventually that will start to come to some sort of fruition. I mean, the goal at Newcastle resulted from him. Coventry obviously won the game for us, and he wheeled away, and that was beautiful. And then the performance on Saturday. So he's received unfair criticism at the beginning of this season. I was one of the people that actually came out a few weeks ago and said, look, there's a player in there. Ange can see it. We can sort of see it, but it's not come to fruition yet. And now we're starting to see the signs. He's got his confidence. He's a confidence player, 100%. And the team around him are giving him that confidence. They're like patting him on the back and embracing him and saying, well done, mate. You're brilliant. And when he went off, he deserved that standing ovation when he went off. The crowd was fantastic. And they were singing his name all around the stadium. That's not a player that, should be down in the dumps. He should be lifted. And I don't doubt that over the next few games, he's going to shine a little bit more. And those stats will start to raise. But, he really is our only option on that side of the pitch. I don't really see a lot of other options to replace him at the moment. So we have to stick with him and I hope that it comes through. I mean, a lot of those crosses might actually be shots, because he scores a lot of goals, it seems, from that angle.
Yeah.
So we may be thinking that he's crossing and it's getting blocked, but he may actually be trying to put it in the bottom left-hand corner as we look at it.
That was his trademark for Nottingham Forest, that kind of goal.
Yeah. So I think it gets lost in the stats a little bit there. But I would say his heat map's reflecting a lot better than it did at the beginning of the season. He's going to be. He was in amongst it. I mean, he had some shots in the central part of the goal as well, which were blocked, a bit like Kulusevski's. So he could have scored a couple on Saturday, to be honest with you. So yeah, I'm fully with Brennan, and I hope he goes up to the next level now and starts smashing in twos and threes rather than just the odd goal.
Jake, staying with Brennan Johnson, of course, Ange Postecoglou said he's gone through a tough time with all this trolling online. But you can't shut the critic up better than scoring a goal like that against Coventry, can you? Because he showed real composure, for a player supposedly lacking confidence.
That was again a bit like Madison taking his time with his goal at the end of so beautiful, so sublime finish. It spun into the net on the bottom left-hand corner. Sorry, I'm just going to get rid of that. Spun into the bottom left-hand corner, and he came away with a big grin. And then on Saturday, that shush to the trolls, shush to the Brentford fans, shush to everybody that doubted him, wheeled away, absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, it's good. It's nice to see, and good luck to the lad.
Is that all I need to do to my trolls? Just do that.
Yeah, if only it was that easy. But no, that shows that he's got a little bit about him. You need that, as I say, that arrogance, that belief in yourself. And if you're wheeling away and giving it a big smile when you're wheeling away, you've got that confidence. And let's see more of it, because we're going to see some cracking goals out of him, I think, over the next few games.
Let's hope so. Craig, let's come to you. Let's talk about goalkeeper Vicario. He had a very, very mixed game on Saturday. So far this season, he's conceded 5 goals, 1 clean sheet, save percentage 71%. He's made 12 saves, goals prevented 1.52, passing accuracy 87.1%, long ball accuracy 42.3%. What did you make of Vicario's performance on Saturday, Craig?
He scares the crap out of me sometimes, Vicario, but he's a phenomenal shot stopper. You've only got to look at that save he made in the second half. Brilliant stop. It's the other bits that he does need to improve. When he was messing around in the first half with the ball at his feet, obviously they nearly nipped in and scored. This handball thing, thankfully VAR couldn't intervene because it wasn't a goal-scoring opportunity. We could clearly see that he handballed the ball outside the area twice. How the referee didn't spot that, by the way, I don't know, or the linesman. Very, very odd, but, we'll take it. And obviously his ability from crosses has got to improve and command in his box. He's not a young goalkeeper anymore. He's 27, I think. So, he should be nearing his the peak of his powers. So he's got to get better. He's got to improve in certain areas, but he is a very good goalkeeper. Like I say, he does worry me a little bit though. But Fraser Forster worried me even more the other night. So it makes you realise actually we have had some great goalkeepers over the years. Hugo Lloris, for one, 10 years at the club. I know he had his critics, but he made some very important saves for us. And apart from playing out from the back, which with his feet, he was never the best at. He was a sensational goalkeeper. So Vicario's got a lot to live up to as regards Hugo, of course. So, but I think he's going to be here for many years to come. And hopefully Austin gets a bit of game time, because I do think, as I said earlier, that he's got he's earned that right to play now.
Gareth, let's come to you. Let's talk a little bit about Dominic Solanke, because of course he got off the mark for Spurs, scoring his first Tottenham Hotspur goal. It was an easy tap-in for him, but exactly what he needed.
Well, that's like Chris. We haven't had the players on that area. Yeah. This season they put that on the net, and that was the main takeaway from it. That he was reading great strikers can visualize things, and he could visualize what Madison was going to do. If Madison was going to score, the keeper was going to parry it. I think Madison was very clever to go across the goalkeeper. So you'd always coach myself, when you're on that position, always go across the goalkeeper, because if he saves it, it can always parry, come back out to your player. And so he got himself on the right area, and he finished it. And you know what I mean? If he scores 20 of those goals, I don't care. You know what I mean? It's not about scoring great goals. It's about scoring goals. And that was the type of that type of finish that we've been missing this season, a player in that area. If it had been like the Newcastle game, if it had been Madison having a shot, God knows who would have been there to parry it on, because we probably would have had Odegaard standing out on the left-hand side and saw maybe in the edge of the box, and nobody would have scored. So great that Solanke's in. Great for his confidence that he gets a goal, because there seemed to be this whole media sort of overreaction that he hadn't scored. And I seen Match Day put up, he'd finally got off the mark. It was his third game. You know what I mean? So that 65 million price tag was always going to create headlines if it doesn't go well. So I'm delighted he's got off the mark, and everybody can stop talking about, when's he going to score his first goal now. And I think as a striker, you just want to get off the mark as soon as possible. And I think now I would play him on Thursday night as well, get him at least 60 minutes, and I think hopefully get the game over with, and then tell him to put his feet up for Sunday, because Man United are there for the taking. Really going to be there for the taking, and Spurs can go there and win. So I thought his all-round play as well. He's pressing. I think Richarlison tries his best. I think he's a decent. I know a lot of Spurs fans won't disagree with me, but I think a fit Richarlison is a decent second striker option. I don't think there's too many teams that would say no to a fit Richarlison on their bench as a second striker. So if we can get him fit at some stage, I know it's going to be quite a long time, judging by Ange's comments, because it would have been perfect to get Richarlison sort of firing on the Europa League after Solanke gets himself up to speed and can rest up for a Saturday game. But no, look, I think he's exactly what I think Ange was spot on when you think about an Ivan Toney and a Solanke. Solanke fits our system much better because we've seen how important that press is. The Spurs, that first goal all came from a press, and I think this season we've especially against the Newcastle game, I thought our pressing was outstanding, but we just didn't make the most of those opportunities. And I think a Solanke in there can really make those opportunities count. And even his hold-up play, he's quite mobile. He's quick as well. I was surprised to see how quick he can be. He's not lightning, but he's got a wee bit of burst of pace. So I think there's lots to be positive here about Solanke. I know people are writing him off after a couple of games, but strikers always need a wee bit of time, especially the fact that he didn't really come on foot.
I was going to ask Gareth, was the criticism, because when I showed this shot map here, all 6 shots that he's had on target so far this season in a Spurs shirt in the Premier League have all been quite central. Do you think that is why people were aiming criticism at him?
I think just as well, possibly, but I think as well, Chris, the price tag is obviously the biggest criticism because Brennan Johnson gets labelled with that criticism because of the price tag as well. But I think you just have to realise that it's a big move for him. It didn't work for him at Liverpool. He went to Bournemouth. He's had to rebuild himself back up. He gets a big move. It's not his fault about the price tag. That release clause was put on there as protection for Bournemouth, and he's going to be nervous. I mean, you wouldn't be human if you weren't nervous about because he'll probably at his age, 26 now, coming under the peak of your career. This is probably his last big chance at a move. If this doesn't go well, he's not going to get another big move. So I'm sure he's just desperate to get off to a great start. And sometimes you can tense up, be a wee bit nervous. Then he gets an injury. He's probably thinking mentally, "Oh my God, what an awful start!" But that's just the perfect wee tonic for him on Saturday, and I'm really hoping now he can. I'd love to see him get a couple now on Thursday night, and we're 3-0 up with 60 minutes to go, and we can make changes. And because I would like to see us go semi-strong, not 8 changes, but maybe 4 or 5 semi-strong. Get the game over with after 60 minutes and rotate players for Thursday night, because Man United do have an extra day's rest. They're playing on the Wednesday night, so they will have that wee bit of an advantage. Plus, they're at home on Sunday as well, so no traveling for them. They play at home Wednesday, home on Sunday. So they've got a wee bit of a 24-hour advantage there. So I'd like to see us go strong, get the game over with, and then really have everyone fit and firing for Sunday. Because I think Solanke at the moment, I would rather see him play again. If he scores 2 goals, all of a sudden he's got in there with that 3 in the last 2 and kind of think in as a striker, because I played as a striker myself, and I know Craig did as well. When you're in good form, you kind of think something. It's that wee bit of confidence. You think someone's going to fall my way, as something will happen for me, as opposed to trying to make things happen. And I think against Coventry the other night, he was almost trying to make things happen himself rather than that natural ability that he can get himself into those areas. So I think as a striker, just when you're on that form, you have that wee bit of self-confidence that things will happen for you. And look, I think this is a huge week as well, and we're going to talk about it. But if we can get the 2-1s, Chris, that we spoke about, we're in a really strong position then, get into the final week before international break. So huge week ahead. I would just like us to see Solanke get a couple more before Sunday.
Chase, as Gareth said there, Solanke's pressing absolutely exceptional. Certainly fits this Ange Postecoglou system without any doubt at all. Are you a fan of Dominic Solanke? What have you made of him in these few games that he's played for us so far? And would you like to see him in the starting 11, particularly spending that much time out with an injury? Would you like to see him in the starting 11 for the Europa game on Thursday?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was a prolific striker for a team that was sort of mid to low table. So to get 19 odd goals for Bournemouth, there's something there, isn't there? I mean, it was almost as if the first couple of games he was on the treadmill at level 5. Not that I know too much about treadmills, by the way, but and he went up to about level 9 on Saturday. He was everywhere, all over the pitch. His fitness levels looked like they just kicked in, and that's why he found himself in the position he did, I think. And he was creating moments. He was involved in all the play, something that was extremely lacking, certainly in the last game that he played. So it was good to see. And I think that he, again, once the crosses start coming in and we start to get on the end of the crosses, he's going to be the main beneficiary. But he will create a lot of his own stuff, a bit like Harry used to. I think he's got that capability to do stuff in the midfield, move forward, and create a lot of the stuff himself. And he's that kind of player. I think he's definitely got the ability there.
Neil Davis writes here, give him an hour on Thursday, ready for Sunday. Now, my question, I think, would be, is that Are we all saying play Dominic Solanke because he hasn't played? He's been out injured, so he needs the game time. Yeah. Or is it that you want us to go strong in these competitions anyway?
Yeah, go strong. Go strong to begin with. I think we talked about that earlier. Go strong.
United's a bigger game, wasn't it? United has a bigger game on Sunday, so I would go semi-strong and play Solanke because he needs minutes. He needs to get that fitness up, as opposed to because I think we can beat. I think we'll beat Qarabag, whatever team we put out. To be honest, they're a pretty poor team. I watched them in the qualifying of the Champions League. I think Dynamo Zagreb battered them 4-5 on their own place. So I don't think they're particularly strong. So I would just play him because he needs the minutes, as opposed to us going strong. Because I think if we go strong and we get an injury, and then Sunday comes and United has a bigger game, as Craig pointed out. There's 8 games in this. As long as we get the one, it doesn't really matter how we play. We're going to be judged against Man United. We could beat Qarabag 8-0. And if we don't beat United, everyone will forget Qarabag. So you're going to be, whatever one on Thursday is just get the one, and then on the Sunday, and I'd rather see a one on Sunday, if you know what I mean.
Jace, let's come back to you. What sort of game are you expecting Thursday?
I don't know. It's a difficult one, really, to try and work out. I mean, it all depends on what team he picks. It all depends on the atmosphere. I don't think there's particularly many tickets sold for Thursday. There's a lot of empty seats. That in itself could be a little bit of an issue. But yeah, I mean, if we get a strong start in the Europa, then that's going to then put us into a good position at the weekend. With, we're riding a crest of a wave after 3 games potentially have won. So it's a bit of a fine balance. I'd hope you take it seriously on Thursday, because I know Qarabag haven't beaten many or any English sides that they faced, but there's always that banana skin that we've seen so many times in the Europa League, Conference League. I think we struggled against some teams that we wouldn't even expect to struggle against. Yeah. So I think we need to put our stamp down again on Thursday, and like everybody says, go strong to begin with. If Solanke gets a couple of goals, then that's fantastic. His stats going upwards in the right direction, and then we can bring on some of the Mikey Moore potentially would go in this position. I'm not quite sure. Would Mikey Moore have a chance? Is he in the Europa squad? Is he, Chris?
Yeah, he's a very versatile player as well, and he can play in so many different positions, which is great. Yeah.
So that could be his opportunity to come through. In the latter part of that match. So, there are opportunities there.
Craig, 8 changes against Coventry, 8 changes again for Brentford. How many changes do you think that Ange will make for Thursday's game?
I think there'll be a few. I think if you've
as many as 8.
It could be. If you've got I can't remember what I said. I think I got my predicted lineup there somewhere. What I'd like to say before I answer that, there's about 1,000 of you watching this stream. As soon as we finish, don't do it now. Don't leave us, but please go and vote for Chris in these awards. The 2 categories he's in, because if you all vote, we could be lifting a trophy at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and we'll do a whole show, right? We'll do a whole show with the trophy, and we'll talk about it and tell you what it was like. Honestly, it would just be phenomenal, wouldn't it? Because you guys watching, you're the reason we do this. So you vote for us, brilliant, honestly. So after as soon as you get off, and tell all your mates, tell anyone you know to go on and vote. It takes about 2 seconds. I did it earlier. Just do it. And I know Chris wouldn't say that, but I'm saying it for the sake of Chris. So please, please, please go and vote, please.
Tell your cousins and your grannies and your grandads.
Yeah, tell people that support other clubs to go and vote for him.
There'd be a trophy parade and everything.
We will. Yeah, there's one for you. If we win the trophy, we will hire a bus. Right. Well, perhaps it probably costs too much, but we'll do something. We'll parade it down the high road or something like that. But yeah. Anyway, what was the question? My team. Yeah.
How many changes? How many changes do you think he'll make?
I can't remember the team that I said to you. I've got it there somewhere, but I think there could be 5 or 6 changes. We've got to change it up 100%. I think we've got to change it up. He's going to change it up. He's going to change the goalkeeper. I wouldn't be surprised to see Dragushin come in. I think he's got to, because of the Jed Spence. The fact he's not there, I think he's going to have to play Porro or Udogie, probably Udogie, to be honest with you. And then perhaps put Gray at right back. Bergval's going to come in, I think. You could be right about Brennan Johnson, but I think Mikey Moore could get a start here. I think Timo Werner will start. I wouldn't mind seeing Will Lancashire actually get a start. I know that seems like a lot of changes, but as Jason said, this is Europa League. It's not a one game knockout. So, and Qarabag aren't the best opposition, dare I say, that we're going to play. We're at home. Yes, the stadium probably won't be quite full, but I'll be there and I'll be cheering the team on. So I think, I'm going to say 6 or 7 changes, I think you'll go with.
Craig, let me ask you about the new format, because, of course, we've seen some of the games being played in the Champions League. When you see the league table, it looks a huge table, doesn't it? It looks weird, doesn't it? What have you made of it?
Do you know what? When I turned it on halfway through when they were doing the draw, I couldn't bloody work out what they were going on. I put in our group chat. I just totally got lost. But now actually looking at it, I think Gareth actually explained it actually to me, and then I understood it. I actually quite like it. The fact you're not playing teams home and away. I like the fact we're playing 8 different teams. I totally get the league table. Excellent. Well done, Dazza. I get the league table thing. And to be honest, you've got to be pretty poor not to progress to the next round. So if we don't get through, then something's probably gone badly wrong. I do like this new format. I love it, the fact we're playing teams home, not home and away. We're playing 4 away, 4 at home. And the fact there's more games as well. It just helps our fringe players get some game time, you'd like to think, and hopefully we'll be qualified by Christmas, and then the 2 games in January we can perhaps rest some players completely and put out real sort of second strings. Hopefully they will be in the groove, and hopefully they can get the job done as well.
Janet writes here, who will partner Dragushin? Romero is suspended for Thursday.
Yeah,
I think Davies probably.
It's got to be, isn't it? Got to be Davis.
Yeah.
Gareth, we'll go on to some questions now, the viewers and listeners' questions. So if you do have any more, please do send them in, and we'll get through as many as possible in the next 20 minutes or so. Gareth, FTS 4608 writes here, and this is about Thomas Frank. If Ange Postecoglou leaves Spurs, I want this guy. Now, I tell you what, when I posted the press conferences on Saturday, the comments from about Thomas Frank, very, very positive comments from a lot of Spurs fans saying how they like his manner, how he was very honest about the game. What do you think of Thomas Frank as a manager?
I think he's a good coach, but where's the evidence to the point that he's going to be the man to take Spurs to the next level? Are we not better sticking what we have? And things were to go really wrong with Ange. I'm not sure Thomas Frank would be the ideal fit for Spurs, just based on. I think he's another conservative manager, maybe because he's at Brentford, he has to play that way. I know when they're in the Championship, they were quite progressive on the front foot, but it's very, I wouldn't say easy, but it's a lot easier to manage at Brentford than it is to manage at Spurs. Because at Brentford, you can go on period. Brentford had a poor season last year, and it kind of went unnoticed because Thomas Frank's done such a good job there. I do agree that he has got a bit of class about him, and I do like him. I do like listening to these interviews. I think he says it how it is. He was on Monday Night Football, not your one, Chris, but he was on the Sky Sports Monday Night Football, and he was pretty good on that. But I'm not sure he would be what the Spurs fans would enjoy. I think it would be very much an Nuno type appointment, where Nuno at Wolves done a great job, but the same expectations are not in place at Wolves. I think very similar as well. Frank has got some brilliant results, I think, especially against Man City. He's had some great results against Man City, but again, that's playing a completely different style of football. And I just think it would be very Nuno-like if you went for a Thomas Frank. You'd be taking a huge risk and thinking he could do something better at a bigger club with more expectation than it would be with a Brentford. But look, I think he's done a great job at Brentford. Does he deserve possibly an hour chance at a bigger club if he come on for him? I think he's been on the shortlist at Chelsea at times. I do think Spurs have looked at him. But what is that next step up from Brentford? Because I think you're looking at the likes of Villa, Spurs, Newcastle. Would he be a fit for Newcastle if things go wrong with Eddie Howe? I'm not sure. I think they would probably look for somebody with more prestige because they've been down that route with Eddie Howe, haven't they? So, look, I think it could be very difficult for him to get a better job than he has at Brentford. But he has done a great job there, so fair play to him. And he is very likeable, and I think Brentford's a team that a lot of people admire, and you like to see him stay up. Good luck to him there.
Neil Davis writes here, Arteta could take some lessons from Thomas Frank. I don't know what you mean.
Well, we know about Arteta, don't we? He's very outspoken. Where I think Thomas Frank's a bit more reserved.
Jace, let's come to you. SM1249 says Pedro Porro's side is where all the goals come from. He cannot defend a dribbling winger. And Ravine writes here, we need to step up our game against Manchester United in defence. What have you made of us defensively so far this season? I know it was very disappointing to concede yet another set-piece goal against our rivals Arsenal at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium a week or so ago. But overall, what have you made of us defensively?
Yeah, defence is a difficult one, isn't it? We've seen this ball come over the top and having to close it down in the final third, and that's what's caught us out, especially against Newcastle. That was a big gaping hole that we couldn't sort out. So Porro, well, at the beginning of the season, he had stats that said he was one of the most prolific shooters that we had in the team, but not necessarily one of the best defenders. And I don't think he really hasn't been. He's not up there with Mickey with tackles and stuff like that. I don't think, unless his stats say otherwise. But he's more of a forward defensive player. So Dogi, he's kind of finding his feet again after last season. He's still on the up. He's not quite reached the levels that he was previously. And Mickey and Romero, yeah, they're great, but we found they've been fouled out a couple of times. So it's a difficult one. What we need is that screen. That screen in front of those guys is the most important thing, rather than the actual defence itself. I think Bentancur showed, and certainly Biss on Saturday, when that screen works in front of the back four, then it's great. But when they're exposed, that's where we got all our problems. And that's a difficult one, especially when Mickey's missing and that ball comes over the top and we have to chase it down. That's where a lot of our problems come from.
I'm glad you mentioned Bentancur, actually, Jace, because I thought Bentancur was absolutely superb at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in our win, because he's played 4 games in the Premier League so far. He started 3, played 217 minutes, 134 successful passes, passing accuracy 91.8%, tackles won 100%. He's received 3 yellow cards so far, made 2 blocks, 7 interceptions, and not so much of a forward player because he's only had 4 touches in the opposition box. Craig, let's come to you on Bentancur. If it was Bentancur or Basuma, who are you choosing?
At the moment, on current form, you'd have to go with Bentancur because I think he's looked the best at the moment since his ACL injury. Since coming back from that, sorry. Having done that injury myself, and even though obviously I didn't get perhaps the same level of care he got every day, day in, day out, the injury's still the same, the operation's still the same, and your body only recovers at a certain rate. Some people come back a little bit sooner, but really the human body's a human body, right? And it does take over a year for you to actually get back to, if you're lucky enough to get back to the player you were before. And he's only just now coming back to that sort of level. Last few weeks, I think he's been phenomenal. I really do. In the 6, I think that's good, right? Having players that can play in there that, you want people to challenge each other. And that's kind of where we still lack and still have a bit of taste in my throat that we didn't go for Eze, because people saying, where's he going to play? We've got James Madison. That's what you want. You want players all over the park, 2 in every position. So for me, it would be Bentancur at the moment. But look, Basuma come on, actually made an absolutely sensational tackle that set up the 3rd goal, essentially. So I think Basuma realises he's not a shoo-in for that position. Sarr isn't you know, he played a lot in the first 10 games last season. He's not a shoo-in, but that's what you want. That's what you want all over the park. Players fighting for their position. There shouldn't be anybody in this team who gets in just by right. So just bring it on. But at the moment, I'd say Bentancur just edges it, and I think he'd be a big loss. Let's hope he's not out for too long. He must obviously be punished for what he did. It's stupid, but let's hope he's not out for too long.
Gareth, let me ask you the same question: Bentancur or Basuma?
It's tough because I think they're both inconsistent. And there was a stat before the Arsenal game on Sky Sports that he hadn't won his last 7 Spurs games before the Arsenal game, so 8. That's 8 Premier League games. I think he had something like that. So the stats when he plays don't back up what maybe he's been showing. I think he's very inconsistent. I thought Saturday, like the boys says, I thought he was probably the best player in the pitch. You know, Madison got a lot of plaudits, but I thought Bentancur was excellent. I was actually watching the game in Budapest. Funny enough, Chris, we are going next week for the away game, but I thought he was outstanding, and I was kind of thinking, that's the Bentancur I want to see. Whether it's the injury, whether it's the constant chopping and changing the midfield, hasn't been good for some of the midfielders, because I think Madison's form has been on and off as well. Basuma on and off. Maybe he just needs to stick with a 3 in there until they get used to it, because if you remember that first 10 games last year, it was the same midfield 3 all the time. It was Basuma, Sarr, and Madison, and that got the best out of him. Maybe he just needs to stick with that in the league anyway, and maybe rotate, because for whatever reason, that midfield balance hasn't been right. But I thought on Saturday that was the best we've had. I thought Bentancur, Kulusevski, and Madison, they would be my 3 on Sunday again if Bentancur isn't banned before that. I know we had until Thursday, I believe, to respond. So whether that's done in time for Sunday, we might get another week before he gets that ban. I'm not sure. But if he is available, I would pick him on Sunday, and I would rest him completely on Thursday. But I don't know. Well, the club might have an insight, but it'll be interesting to see if he plays on Thursday. I would imagine that means the ban could come before the weekend. So I think we'll get a lot of information come Thursday night with the team, because I think if Basuma starts, that means Bentancur will be available on Sunday, won't it? So preference-wise, I'm not sure. I think both of them have different quality. I think Bentancur's better on the ball. Basuma is really good at that type of challenge that he made. I thought the first 10 games he was brilliant at that, but Bentancur probably is a better technical player. But either way, we need them at their best. And if you even had the 2 of them at their best, I mean, that's a great decision they have every week. There is an argument for that. The only thing I would say is Romero's very fortunate to be in that team based on the errors he's made in the first few games. Should Dragusin be given an opportunity? I don't think he will. I think Dragusin will have to make do with the Europa League and the cup games until there's an injury. I really do think that unless things go badly wrong at the back, Ange will persist with Romero and Van de Ven. But at the minute, Bentancur definitely would agree with Craig. Based on his performance, I know Basuma come on did well. I would start with Bentancur, and I would start with Kulusevski and Madison, and would stick with those 3 this weekend. And if it goes well, if Bentancur's banned, you'll just have to bring Basuma back in. But I would definitely stick with Madison and Kulusevski now for the foreseeable. Because I think Kulusevski's offering more than Sarr in that pocket on the right. Madison's your best player in that left pocket. And I do think Johnson on the right is better for us instead of Kulusevski coming inside from the left. I think him getting down the right is what Solanke needs. Of course, Son's going to play on the left and Solanke up front. So I think the most important thing is getting that consistency in our midfield and our attack moving forward. And even if it's not sort of at its free flowing best, stick with it and let them play in the form, because I do think that is their best option at the moment, Chris.
Jace, let's come to you. King Hoddle says here, actually, that team was probably our best current 11. As you mentioned earlier about the other squad players that come in against Coventry last week, have we got enough depth? Because an injury or 2 to this current starting 11 could derail us again, like it did last year. I don't want to be negative, but it's realistic, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. If we have another situation where we were at Chelsea, you know, that where everything just fell away, then that was only 1 or 2 players either suspended or injured. So at the moment, I think if we had Richarlison back, and I think that would make quite a difference, you know, to have him on the bench. but we are always a player or two away from a crisis. So it's a difficult one, really. It's I don't know. If we lose Madders, who's just starting to come back into form, Bentancur's just coming back into some great form. Kulusevski's coming back to being Kulusevski. Son's off it a little bit at the moment, but there's no real replacement for him. It's always that fine line, unfortunately. If we could get to January, and then hopefully, although we don't usually do a lot of business in January, do we? So, unless I'm wrong, I don't think it's been some years since we've done that. So it's really just pushing through to that point, and then if we are in crisis regarding injuries, then we're going to have to rectify it pretty quickly, or we're going to be out of a lot of stuff very quickly.
Lastly, let's get score predictions for Thursday. And while we're here, we might as well get score predictions for our next Premier League game, Manchester United away on Sunday. Craig, should we kick off with you?
I'm going to be super positive. I've just got good vibes, Chris. So I think we're going to win 4-0 Thursday at Karabag, or against Karabag. And I genuinely think we're going to turn United over 2-1.
Well, you come on here smiling, come on here laughing, talking about trophies down the high road.
I know.
Now predicting 2 wins. What's happened to you today?
I don't know. I just got a feeling. I might change my mind by Wednesday. Who knows?
Gareth, what are you thinking? Is it going to be a good week for Tottenham?
Very similar to Craig. I'll go for 3-0 on Thursday. I'd love to see Mikey Moore get a start, and I think he will, because I think we really have to protect what we have there. As it says, Johnson, Son, and Solanke. I think Solanke plays because he needs the minutes. Other than that, I think Lancashire, if he's only come back from injury as well, he possibly could have played. But I think they'll play Solanke, but I imagine Mikey Moore will start, and possibly Timo Werner, who I'm not a fan of, as we all know. I do think midfield, Sarr will come in, Bergvall will come in, Gray at right back, Ben Davis could play at left back or centre back, so there'll be a lot of changes. But I do think we'll be strong enough to beat Qarabağ. I think it's a perfect game to bring Mikey Moore in and give him his first home start. You'd rather see him coming under this game than the Coventry game, because them League Cup games can go either way. We've seen shocks all the time, but generally Qarabağ don't trouble English teams, especially away from home. I think we'll be far too strong, whatever team we put out. And the fact we're at home, I can see us being a bit better than we were against Coventry. So I'll bring Mikey Moore in, and hopefully he has a positive impact. So I'll go for a 3-0 one on Thursday. And like Craig says, look, I'm not as you know, Chris, I don't really rate Man United. I don't think they're a great team. I think if we lose or draw on Sunday, it'll be us. We'll be blaming ourselves rather than anything brilliant Man United have done. I think it'll be very much attack versus defence. If we're clinical up front and we're decent defensively, we'll beat Man United. Because I just don't think United are, the way we're playing as a team, I don't see that with Man United. I think there's a lot of whereas I think with us everybody's on side. I don't think at Man United there's a bit of a divide there. Some players are playing for managers, some ain't. So I think we've got a huge opportunity to go there and get a big one away from home in the Ange Postecoglou era. Because other than the Villa one, we haven't really went to a big away ground and won. So I think this might be the chance to do it. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 Spurs 1 on Sunday.
Jace, what are you going for? Because I know this Manchester United team have been very unpredictable, but going to Old Trafford is never easy, is it?
No, we haven't got a great history there, I don't think, for many years. We have had some odd results. I think during the COVID we won 6-2, was it, or something like that? 6-1?
6-1.
I think 6-1. Yeah, so that was a bit of a strange one, but it's only Man United. So maybe
love it.
Maybe Qarabağ 4-1. I'm going to go for because we always let a goal in at some point. Maybe first they will score first and unsettle us. And then I think we'll go for a 3-2 for Sunday. I think there's going to be a lot of goals in the game. It'll be a very open game. And I think maybe Rashford also want to be back, who generally has a good time against us, which is a bit unfortunate. But I think we can do it. I think we can win on Sunday. So, yeah, 3-2.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Jace. I'm certainly hoping so anyway. Spurs Diehards writes here, who would the panel like in the Carabao Cup? The draw takes place on Wednesday. Craig, who would you like?
Anybody outside the top 6, please, for once. But look, you get who you get. I just want a home tie, if I'm brutally honest. I don't really care who it's against. It'd be lovely if it's anybody,
I think as well, Craig and Chris and JJ, see with the draw in the first round, all the big teams are through, realistically. Unless there's a miracle this week that Bolton go to Arsenal and get a result. Man City have an easy draw. Liverpool's the only one. They've got West Ham at home. That could be tricky, but you're going to have a lot of the big hitters in there in the first round, because obviously the third round last year, I think Man City might have played Chelsea and there was another big tie in there. So you're going to have all those big teams. There is a chance we could meet one of those, but you'd take anybody, wouldn't you, at home outside of the big teams. But if we have to get one of those, you want them at home. And I think as well, if we have a home game against one of those big teams, I do think Ange will go strong. I think he'll only rotate if it's a weaker team in the lower division.
Jace, who would you like?
I'd like to welcome back Arsenal to the stadium.
Wow.
I'd like to get them while they're on the ropes after yesterday, which is a beautiful thing.
Wow.
John Stones, I love you, man. I'd like to get them back, because taking revenge on them so quickly would be fantastic. So let's have a North London derby and get that out of the way and put them to bed. That'd be lovely, wouldn't it?
What a way to end the podcast. John Stones, I love you, man.
It was a beautiful moment, I have to say.
Jace, thank you so much for joining us again on the Spurs Chat podcast. Don't leave it so long next time. Come back again soon. Hope you've enjoyed this evening, and we've certainly enjoyed having you here. Where can people find you on social media, and what are you up to at the moment?
Yeah, so you can follow the South Dorset Spurs on the X, the fantastic minibus journeys to and from Tottenham Stadium. Good old 8 hours in the minibus, and then on Instagram, SDS_COYS. Follow us on there. And I'll be there on Thursday, and I'll be there for the next few home games, hopefully. So happy days.
Before we go to Craig, I know Craig loves this thing of tell us where you're watching from around the world. Yes. So we'll go to Gareth. So while Gareth's talking, which might be a couple of minutes, we'll get where everyone's watching from. So Gareth, tell us all about the podcast. How is it all going? What are you up to at the moment?
Mr. Beast.
Funny enough, somebody actually says there, Mr. Beast is looking a bit different this week. But I had to get shaved up for the holiday, and I think Yesh as well there, as also says a fellow Derry Mucker, so I'm not sure if he's from the side where I am, but good to see this man on. I do the watching from Dublin. Warren's a few hours down the road from me as well. The 12-man podcast you can find on YouTube. Premier League best talk about we'll be doing one tomorrow night talking about the Champions League and of course the Europa League games coming up, and we'll also reflect on that manic game yesterday at Man City Arsenal, so we'll have plenty to say about that. You can also find me on Twitter. You can see the name there at Gareth Spurs, and you usually find me on here on Monday Night Football. I'm sure you'll probably find me on here next Monday night talking about 2 Spurs victories, I hope.
Absolutely. Craig, they're all coming in thick and fast. Jamaica, South Africa, Cornwall, Czech Republic,
Belfast,
Sheffield.
Belfast, so about an hour away from me.
It's incredible. Belfast, North London.
Lovely.
Craig, where can people find you, Craig?
I'm at Dearman 9 on X in Essex.
No, you're in Essex, Craig.
I'm in Essex. Yeah, Essex and proud. Yeah. At Dearman 9 on X. If you want to give me a follow, that'd be lovely. Amazing to see where you're all watching from. As I say, if you can spare a couple of minutes, all 1,000 of you watching after the podcast, go straight online and vote, and we could get a trophy. We could get a trophy at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. How good would that be?
That would be something if Chris has got a trophy at the stadium before Spurs do. Like, he can actually say to the players, I'm more successful at the stadium than you. That's incredible.
Well, we're just very, very happy to be shortlisted. So thank you so much for all of your support. Thank you for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. And we will be back again for another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast on Wednesday, previewing our game in the Europa League on Thursday. Have a good couple of days. Stay safe and well. Come on, you Spurs.